Less than 2 years ago, the manager of the Village People reportedly sent a cease and desist letter to Donald Trump's lawyer. The manager, Karen Willis, the wife of one of the group's members, was supposedly upset that Trump had been filmed dancing to Macho Man at Mar-a-Lago. As Rolling Stone reported at the time, quote, "The Village People are once again asking Donald Trump to stop using their music." Now, who knows if that story is true or not? It's in Rolling Stone, so honestly, it's probably completely made up. But just for a moment, for the purpose of this segment anyway, let's pretend that it's accurate. From a practical perspective, the story makes sense. The Village People are basically gay icons by design. They produce gay anthems. And according to MSNBC, Donald Trump wants to throw all the gay people into camps. So how can the Village People possibly tolerate any affiliation or applied affiliation with the Orange Hitler, who wants to imprison and torture all the gay people and every other minority as well? With that in mind, it'd be hard to think of a better illustration of Donald Trump's political comeback than the scene last night at Capital One Arena in Washington, where Trump was holding a victory rally. And after he was done speaking, the Village People themselves got up on stage with him, and this is what that looked like.
There's no need to feel down. I said, young man, pick yourself off the ground. I said, young man, cause you're in the town. There's no need to be unhappy. Young man, there's a place you can go. I said, young man, when you're short on your dough, you can stay there. And I'm sure you will find many ways to have a good time.
Now, apparently, we're not supposed to read this moment as an endorsement of Donald Trump by the Village People. On Facebook, one of the group's members, the guy who plays the cop, put out a whole statement about this, which is kind of entertaining to read, if only because he clearly wants to pacify the group's more militant fans, because apparently this group has militant fans. But he's not quite sure how to do it. Here's part of it. Quote, "Our performances are not an endorsement of the president-elect's policies. Having said that, we do support that we have a new president now. It wasn't the LGBTQ community that made YMCA great again by pushing the song to #1 for 5 weeks on a Billboard chart. 5 weeks at #1. It wasn't the African-American community that did that either. Janet Jackson has a song that says, 'I know you may have done some things for me in the past, but what have you done for me lately?' Well, one man has done a lot for the Village People lately. His name is Donald Trump." So I guess they're endorsing the idea that we have a new president, and but the idea is he's endorsing the fact we have a new president, but not the president himself. But at the same time, they are kind of endorsing Trump because he's made them a lot of money lately. And so at least there's some honesty there. I don't know. Even so, obviously, the fact that these people were willing to appear on stage, even if the PR cleanup effort is hilariously clumsy, the fact that they were willing to appear on stage is a pretty big sign that Donald Trump is far more mainstream now than he was just a few years ago. And more importantly, it's a sign that his rallies are, fun for a very wide array of people in the audience. People are excited about his administration, even if they're not hardcore Trump supporters. And that's why yesterday's rally produced this image, which will probably appear in history books at some point in the future, if people still read books in the future. That's what it looks like. It's the perfect image for demonstrating how badly Democrats have played their political hand. They have managed to lose the Village People. In fact, the Village People have gone from sending Donald Trump threatening legal letters to partying with him on stage. And they're not the only ones. I mean, there are many examples of this kind of thing this time around. For example, for his part, Snoop Dogg has had a similar arc. He's gone from acting out Trump's assassination in a music video and lashing out at anyone who performs his inauguration to actually performing at one of Trump's inaugural balls the other day. As USA Today reports, quote, "The rapper 53 on Friday performed at an event in Washington, D.C., where cryptocurrency executives celebrated the inauguration of President-elect Donald Trump. The inaugural crypto ball, held at the Andrew W. Mellon Auditorium, billed itself on his website as an event intended to honor the 60th presidential inauguration, America's first crypto president, President-elect Donald J. Trump, his incoming administration. The event did not feature an appearance from the president-elect himself, but Trump's incoming crypto czar, David Sachs, served as MC for the gala." So here's a little before and after of Snoop Dogg's views on performing at Donald Trump's inauguration, and this is less than 10 years apart.
So ain't nobody gonna perform for Donald Trump, huh? Which one of you jigaboo gonna be the first one to do it? I'm waiting. I'm gonna roast the out one of you Uncle Tom for doing it. Which one of you gonna do it first?
At about noon, just thought that I had to be in Compton soon. Before the day begins, before my mother starts about my friends, to go and damn.
Again, it's not hard to see why this is happening. We're talking about dramatic change of course, but it's not hard to see why. It's the same reason that tech executives like Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos are going to Mar-a-Lago. It's also the same reason Donald Trump received a much larger percentage of the youth vote than any Republican candidate in recent history. Conservatives are now in a highly unusual spot, historically speaking. Conservatives are now seen correctly as far more interesting and engaging and entertaining than their opponents. They don't stand for censorship or political oppression. They stand for free thought. They stand for having families, enjoying life, having a prosperous life, rather than constantly dwelling on self-pity and feigned grievances. And as a result of that, they can have fun. Instead of making up threats to democracy and talking about Hitler, this is what was happening at Capital One rally last night. Watch.
Sorry, little X just followed me on the stage here. He's a very enthusiastic supporter, as you can see. Woo! Yeah. So we're looking forward to making a lot of changes, and this victory is the start, really.
So the Republican Party is succeeding right now in some respects because of moments like this. Democrats resent happiness. They certainly resent children, and Republicans don't. There's evidence that at some level, Democrat voters understand this. Over at CNN, for example, they just ran this report, quote, in the wake of the 2024 election, most supporters of the Democrat Party say that it needs to make significant changes and that they feel burned out by politics. According to a new CNN poll, the party faces its lowest ratings in more than 30 years. The report continues, quote, a 58% majority of Democrats and Democratic-leaning independents say the Democratic Party needs major changes or to be completely reformed, up from just 34% who said the same after the 2022 midterm elections when the party retained control of the Senate but lost the House. Over that time, the share of Republicans and Republican leaners who feel the same about the GOP has ticked downward from 38% to 28%. Now, one reason for these numbers is that there's apparently a very real sense among Democrats that their elected representatives are useless. They spend all their time regulating speech and jailing their political enemies, even as inflation spirals out of control and people's lives get noticeably worse. Quote, only 49% of Democratic-aligned adults say they expect their party's congressional representatives to be even somewhat effective at resisting GOP policies, while more than 9 in 10 Republican-aligned adults expect their party's congressional representatives, who now control both chambers of Congress, to be at least somewhat effective at passing new laws to enact their agenda. That's a pretty stark difference. Less than half of Democrats think their elected officials are going to do anything productive, while 90% of Republican voters think their officials will be productive. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that Republican politicians will be productive. It doesn't mean that they'll actually accomplish anything over the next 4 years, and that remains to be seen, but there's at least some hope and optimism in that direction. Instead, what these figures demonstrate is the same thing we saw at the inauguration parties this weekend, which is that the Democrat Party is in shambles and the Republican Party is mainstream for the first time in decades. In modern history, there has never been a time to be more optimistic about the future of the conservative movement. Right now, millions of people are inspired, even the village people of all people. Meanwhile, over on the Democrat Party, they're seething, and they're scrambling to pick up the pieces. And that is why, in a very real sense, the increasingly unpopular and despondent Democratic Party is today, though certainly not permanently, at least for now, canceled. Hey, YouTube, thanks for listening to the show. If you'd like access to my full show with no ads, you should go to dailywire.com and use promo code Walsh to get 2 months free on all annual plans. See you there.